Three. Welcome back to the Epidose of these crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. Tom here, Tom Clark, the usual host, Justin Giebler of alloutlife.carnivore, and Joe Zumbo, our favorite cyclist from Sydney. Today, we came to talk about a controversial topic, a new project, a grand experiment that flies in the face of all the stuff that everybody's talking about in social media, particularly in carnivore and keto and blah, 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 blah. So anyways, Justin, why don't you describe the grand experiment as you understand it. And then Joe, you can shoot in some color commentary if you would. And then I'll straighten everybody out.
Yeah, so before I do that, I just want to make sure you hit that like button, give us a comment, let us know if you think we're totally off the trail with this one, or if think we're on target. What's your experience with what we're about to go over today? As well as make sure you hit that notification bell so that make sure you're subscribed. And if you're not,
don't tell them about the notification spell.
Yeah, sorry, I said the quiet part loud and the loud part quiet. That's what I did there. And make sure you are subscribed and catch our videos. We release typically 2 videos a week. That's one short rib, which is about like a 20-minute video on a specific topic, and one long format video that's more interview style, like tonight's video. So yeah, please stay subscribed and like. Yeah, so this concept is inspired by our previous interview, which is really great, with the guest John Anderson, and listening to a lot of his content about building the bonfire. So in our community, in the carnivore keto space, dieting space, weight loss space, training space, all of it, athletic space, you hear 3 things: calories in, calories out, eat less, time restricted eating, aka intermittent fasting, and move more, right? Those are kind of the basics of losing weight, getting healthy, getting lean, whatever. John, talking to him, kind of turns that concept on his head. And he's like, I'm eating 9 times a day. I'm having 5 pounds of meat. What about it? And he looks like completely wicked shredded, right? And, champion this, champion that, bodybuilder. I think lifter as well, right? Does he have a championship?
I think he started out in strongman, and
right.
Then he wanted to earn more money, so he went into wrestling. And then of course he went into bodybuilding and training. So yep.
So pretty much all realms he's conquered, basically, when it comes to health and fitness. At age 50, right? He's not even 51 yet.
He's going to be 50 real soon, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gave me and Tom the idea. It's like, well, we're always talking about leaning out, where to take things. I've got some stubborn belly fat and things like that. I'd like to get there as well. And original plan was to get doing a longer fast, but then after listening to him and talking to him, kind of like, well, what if we try the opposite direction? What if we try to just not eat whole meals, because that's not the point. It's just about getting some protein, maybe a bit of fat in you, a number of times a day. So for myself, my goal is 4 to 6 times a day. And we're talking either some raw eggs or some turkey meatballs, along with a meal. And yeah, just try and keep things moving along. So the idea is to build a very strong metabolism. So you could think of your body as the way it burns energy. And, well, Bart's going to kill me, not burn, oxidize into energy for mitochondria. And, our body does become comfortable. So yeah, many people do start carnivore or keto and they lose a lot of weight. They have a lot of health benefits and all that stuff, but they might get stuck in the stubborn area. They might, and what me and Tom see is a lot of people going, I don't want to necessarily say off carnivore, but feeling that they have to add in carbohydrates or some vegetables or something because digestive, sleep issues, energy issues, strength issues, training issues. And me and Tom have noticed there's a bit of a pattern with people in that typically they're doing high fat, and on top of that, typically eating one meal a day or two small meals or something like that. People in this community are quite easy of or quite quick to just put up their meal or talk about their meal if they're asking for help. Of course, that's always just one or two meals. You never know what they've had for the entire day. But oftentimes when people are asking for help, I typically tell them, it looks like you're not eating enough. Be like, I had 2 eggs, 3 strips of bacon, and 6 ounces of beef, and it's like, I'm 6'2" and I weigh 230 pounds. It's like, I don't think that's enough, and so it's like, well, and people like Tom have noticed that it's hard to get in enough calories. It's hard to get in enough protein when you're eating 1 or 2 meals a day, especially 1 meal a day. And so it's like, well, what if you just split up the protein that you want, or you're trying to, or the ideal goal with this is very simple in that if you feel hungry, and you're supposed to kind of do it before you start to feel hungry, grab some protein, chow down on it, 3 ounces or so, maybe a few eggs, maybe some egg whites, and just munch it down, so that your metabolism never slows down and you're never in a state of conservation. You're always in a state of your body wanting to either build muscle or use the protein and the combined fat, because they're always together, for energy. So your body's constantly working on something and you're constantly feeding it. And so you kind of build up that momentum to where you're just a juggernaut of energy and building, basically, or you're just a juggernaut, or you're breaking down, so your body has to build up, and you're going and going and going. So ideally, the leftover fat or stubborn fat that's on your body that you may be trying to get rid of, your body switches to where it finally feels comfortable to start digging into that, because it knows its nutrients and it has enough nutrients, and it's going to burn through the little bit of fat, because this is a bit of a higher protein approach to fat ratio. I think it just ends up that way just because of eating more turkey, doing egg whites, things of that nature. So then when you're giving it that protein, but very little fat, it's going to want to build, it's going to want to move, it's going to keep going, and it's going to have to get that fat from somewhere. So it's going to get it from yourself, essentially. And to me, that's what it's about. And it's about training the body to feel safe in order to burn that deeper fat, not I don't know how to explain it, if it's necessarily that brown fat, but just, some of that's what we call stubborn fat on the body, to really get that leaned out. And I think a part of that, to me, is also because we're having so much protein, and we're also tying in, at least I am, when I eat, I'm going to try and go for a walk, do some push-ups. I'm going to try and stay more active throughout the day after I eat as well, so that my body is breaking down. So I'm using that protein as well. I don't think this approach is good if you're too sedentary. You might run into problems then. But so that could be a pitfall, and finding just the time to eat all throughout the time while you're busy. Like today, I didn't do it. Today, I've only had 2 meals a day. I'm feeling a bit hungry, and I probably didn't eat enough today. I'll just be honest. I didn't do a terribly whole lot, but as I'm building muscle, my calorie demand and my energy demand is going to go up naturally. And that's the other part of this that I think is that because we're going to be putting in that protein, our bodies are going to want to build. And as it builds, you require more. And so you build and then you require more and you build and you require more. And I think that's the sweet spot. That's what you want.
So, Joe, what's your impression after hearing this?
But it's very interesting. I mean, I eat 2 meals a day. But I mean, it does make sense, though. I mean, if you want to build, you got to eat, don't you? And you know, to try and slam, you know, 150 grams of protein in one hit, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, you've been very successful with your eating window from roughly like 8 to 2, right? It helps you lean out, which led to better performance on the bicycle, right? It's just less weight to carry uphill and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. A lot of people have good success with that. Yeah, you're a shining example of that.
Yeah, but I mean, as we were saying before the recording, you know, it also changes as well. Like if I'm going to go out and do an 8-hour bike ride, that's 8 continuous hours of riding a push bike.
Sounds insane.
Yeah, but you know, you need to fuel up. You need to eat a couple of times the day before you actually head out on the bike. And I will eat some ground beef in the form of a burger patty before I head out. So, you know, I mean, it just depends what I'm doing and how long I'm going out for. It depends on how much I'll eat.
Yeah. So my take on it was, you know, I'm kind of familiar with John's technique for a while, but never really tried it in earnest. I'd kind of followed his workouts a little more, but I was still kind of steeped in the whole, you know, when I first started my YouTube channel, I talked about keto and fasting. You know, that was kind of my subject fascination at the time. And then,
well, what was the original name, Tom?
Ketogenic Fasting Project.
So there you go.
And I drifted right into carnivore while I was still talking about that, because that's what I had experience with and where I initially saw a lot of results. But as I moved into carnivore, you know, the typical a lot of people, they start out high fat. At the very least, they're living on ribeyes, it seemed like, but a lot of people are supplementing fat and they do well. Seems to be a lot of healing that goes on. But then eventually I think people's protein demands go up, and they don't realize that they just keep eating the same way. And of course, you know, everybody wants to be skinny, you know, so fasting's kind of one of the ways you can cut body fat. It doesn't work for everybody past a certain extent. But we've met a lot of people that ran into little issues, and where it always seemed like, yeah, you're just not eating enough protein, you know. And the other issue is, you know, if you're eating a bunch of fat, it has a tendency to shut down your hunger. So if you eat too much, well, I know I've experienced, if I eat too much fat up front, then I wind up not having the appetite to keep eating the protein, right? And rarely does that protein come without more fat. So you can do it, you know, with things like egg whites, but if I noticed when I switched to leaner cuts, I did a lot better. You know, I could clearly do more exercise, put on more muscle, and I started losing body fat again. So wanting to come up with a good plan for 2022, I was thinking about it and was like, you know, I really want to try John Anderson's approach. So he kind of describes it as building a bonfire. It's like you're feeding your body regularly, you know, typically smaller amounts. In carnivore, we talk about feasting all the time, right? Putting down a couple of steaks and something else maybe at a time. Of course, the size of a steak can vary greatly. And of course, you got to compare that to the size of the person. But I never thought OMAD worked for me, because I've mentioned this before, like on a light day, if I didn't do any exercise, you know, and I look at my Fitbit, it says I need 3,200, 3,300 calories minimum, right? So that's quite a bit of energy. And then on a day when I did a lot of working out and other activities, I could make it all the way to 6,000 calories. So, and I couldn't do that just sitting down eating steaks or anything else. It was just too much. So then, looking at compressed feeding windows, it didn't work for me either, because typically I wound up working out after work at the gym. I go from the office to the gym, and I'd get hungry on the way to the gym. I'd get hungry on the way home from the gym. It's getting late. And instead of trying to eat these, fairly large prepared meals, like I'll eat like a cup, one or two strip loins at a time, New York strips at a time. Instead of framing it that way, the John Anderson approach, as I understand it, is like when you start feeling hungry, you eat something. It doesn't have to be a lot. So it could be something as little as some egg whites, or you could, eat a steak, or, and, a lot of these guys that have to eat a lot of food, they go to ground meat, ground turkey and ground beef and whatever, because it just digests easier, especially when you're active. So I thought, well, let's try that approach. Let's see if by having smaller meals more frequently, if we can keep that metabolism up, we can get the protein in and build muscle. And of course, the more muscle you have, the more energy you require, which means you're going to need either to eat more food, or you're going to start burning your body fat. So, and to Justin's point, we're used to talking about calories or burning calories. And really, a calorie is basically the closest unit we have to food energy, and it's not really a one-to-one. And even Bart K talks about all the time. John Anderson touched on it. It's really about nutrients and the quality of the nutrients, because all of us in this choir are carnivores, so we're going to tell you that carbohydrates are an inferior source of nutrition, right? You're better off eating meat. So, as much as we don't have a perfect language that lets us talk about energy units in our food, other than talking about calories or burning calories, what we want to do is we want to be putting that energy and the nutrients, when we're talking about protein, we're talking primarily amino acids in our body to help us build muscle. Now, I go to the gym and lift every day. Justin's got his workout. Joe's a cyclist. So we all do exercise, but different, sort of in different styles of exercise. Justin and I aren't too far apart, but we're a little different. And then Joe, he's a performance guy who's out there cycling. So I thought it would be interesting that if we did this experiment, we'll see how it works for Joe, because his feeding is going to be probably determined primarily by his cycling, right, Joe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And for me, I'm more my routine is more the same every day, where I'm going to the gym and I'm working out and I'm not cycling long distances and stuff like that. So anyways, the gist of it is that it's very much different from the feasting and the fasting that is quite commonly discussed or used as a strategy in the rest of the sort of carnivore, keto, low carb world, as is popular. So Justin and I are proposing to do a long-term sort of 6 months delve into this frequent feeding and see what happens. And so if anybody else out there wants to join along, I'm sure Joe's going to be keeping a close eye on us, wondering what are these guys doing?
I'll probably do it for a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah. So
give it a crack.
And then we're going to compare notes with Raymond, because Raymond is the king of feasting and fasting. See what Raymond has to say. Raymond was going to try and be here, but he isn't here yet. So
Yeah, hi there, Tom, Justin, Joe. Raymond was going to invited me in, so that's why I thought I'd pop by. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
He invited an emissary to come in his place.
I can see what's going on.
Yeah, so Justin and I were and Joe, we're talking about a new sort of experiment that we're going to do starting January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is we're going to do frequent feeding, lots of small meals as opposed to large meals and fasting.
All right.
And the goal is to keep your metabolism elevated. And the question is, we all assume that in order to cut body fat, you need to be eating in a caloric deficit. So my guess or my theory is that what happens is when you feed the body frequently and the metabolism is high, the body is more than happy to get rid of excess body fat because it no longer is encouraged to conserve it. And anything extra, there's an expense to, right? If you put on a lot of muscle, it's expensive tissue and you got to maintain it and keep stimulating it. And I think even with body fat, even though the body stores it, it's stored it because in the end it was fed the wrong food, and it's got a sense of scarcity, right? So if your metabolism is dropping off because you're not eating the right food at the right time, it's more likely to store it. So we're not going to intentionally create caloric deficit by counting calories or anything like that, or denying ourselves food or going hungry. And then we're going to see if this technique works, because technique has been used and discussed by lots of other people. We had on John Anderson, who's a bodybuilder and a trainer, who uses this technique, and he kind of describes it as if your metabolism is kind of small, like a campfire, it's easily influenced. But if you keep feeding it and getting it to grow and grow and grow, then it's really hard to put out. So
yeah, I used to be in the fitness world as well, and we use that technique as well, just to eat 7 times a day, every hour, every 2 hours. And it is exactly what you said, to keep the metabolism, not just to keep your muscle sustainable or muscle mass, but also keep the metabolism high. But that was with carbs and a low fat diet. So I'm sure with a carnivore diet would be completely different, maybe a different result. And you won't be worrying about insulin, what many people might be asking about because of the frequent storage.
Well, the thing is, every time you eat, there's going to be some insulin released, right? And there's going to be some glucose response probably, but I don't think it's worrisome. So, you can look at tests like A1Cs and stuff like that and see if there's damage or not. But, I think at the end of the day, even if your insulin is a little bit higher than it typically was before, but let's say you got the results you wanted, you got the bigger muscles and the leaner body fat, then it's probably a negligible difference, because we're not likely to delve into type 2 diabetes territory or anything like that, right? So, but maybe we will. Maybe that does happen, but I seriously doubt it, because I think it's very unlikely that glucose levels will ever get that high. So, and I don't think we're going to be, part of the problem with insulin resistance is that when you have too much fuel in the blood and the body keeps releasing more insulin because there's too much sugar in the blood, if your glucose levels aren't that high and you're using all those cells, because Jess and I are both going to be working out a lot, I seriously doubt insulin resistance is going to develop, because the insulin is going to have the effect that it's intended to have at that time. So Justin and I both are using a device called a Fitbit Sense. It's a watch style sensor, and the Fitbit software. So it will be giving us an idea of how much energy we're using. It tracks your heart rate, of course. So one of the nice features is that it it tracks your heart rate even when you're sleeping. And so you get a good idea of how much you recover, because there's this nice correlation between your heart rate while you're sleeping being lower than your resting heart rate and how much you recover while you're sleeping.
Oh.
And so it gives you some information, tells you, it tracks your sleep quite well. It tracks your O2 levels while you're sleeping, so your oxygen saturation. And then, of course, the software, we can track the food we're putting in, which is going to be interesting, because I don't think either one of us have any intention of restricting our feeding unless we get to the end and we're not our body fat's not coming off or something. Maybe we'll adjust later. But I think what we're going to find is that our hunger guides us into eating in a slight deficit, believe it or not. So like we'll eat to be satisfied and only have, the minor hunger signals.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a good exercise too, and just being able to listen to your body and get the genuine signals, because we all kind of noticed that when we cleaned up our diet, we understood real hunger, but I think we're all kind of programmed to eat less anyways, right? I know I like, oh, I'm a little hungry in the morning, but I can go without, and I'd go without. And I think at the end of the day that is slowing down my metabolism. I think I could get better performance and better body composition by keeping that metabolism elevated. And I've already noticed, because we're experimenting with it right now, and I've already noticed that I'm hungrier in the morning than I've ever been. And Justin said so too, right?
Yeah, definitely easier to eat in the morning. Like when I get up, it's not like a hunger to where it feels like you have to, but it feels like it would feel comfortable to actually eat in the morning. Whereas earlier on carnivore, before starting to really get into this, it was like I'd feel like I'd get sick to my stomach and nauseous if I tried to eat in the morning,
But did you have to get used to it though, Justin? It's just a habitual thing.
Yeah, I had to make it really palatable. So what I was doing was it was like an eye of round steak topped with cheddar cheese and pepperoni slices, just to make it like really decadent, pretty much, as a way to get myself to eat in the morning. So yeah, but now I'm kind of used to it. I could probably grab a burger patty or something like that and be fine. Tom, I do have a question about this. So what do you think happens to states of ketosis? Like, do you think we're just gonna not enter it, or in it very shallowy, maybe when we're asleep, and then kind of that's it? What, do you have any thoughts on that? Or is it something that never really turns off? And because we're not really eating carbohydrates, our body's still going to be turning that fat into beta hydroxybutyrate.
Well, for sure. The thing about ketosis is this, right? We talk about ketosis as because we can measure beta hydroxybutyrate, and beta hydroxybutyrate is really a minor fuel source, but it's significant in the fact that you can measure it yourself, right? You can't just stick your finger and measure the other fatty acids floating around in your blood, which are supplying a lot of the fuel, right? So, anytime you're not releasing insulin and stuff, you're heading into deeper and deeper into ketosis, right? They're kind of counter, the opposite of one another, right? So yeah, if you're sleeping away and you're burning off body fat, and you're not, you're done digesting your food, you're probably going to be, or if you had enough fat in your food, you're probably going to be in a state of ketosis. To be honest with you, I hadn't even really thought about it. I think human beings are meant to cycle in and out of it anyways, right? I don't think there's any way anybody, I suppose there's probably some way you could stay in a state of ketosis all the time, but I don't think that's how we're meant to run anyways. And at the end of the day, why do we know, and how do we know what level of ketone bodies we need to be in a state of ketosis? There's this theoretical level for clinical ketosis that was used to control seizures, right? but for other purposes, what do you want? Well, it's ketones are good. They're anti-inflammatory. You know, they are a clean, very clean source of fuel and stuff like that. But how much of that we need to depend on, I hadn't even really thought of. But we could do some finger sticks and see where we're at.
I'll order more strips then. Yeah, and I do want to put a little pin here. So me and Tom are doing this because Tom's been carnivore for over 3 years. I'm coming up on my 3rd year.
Wonderful. 4 years.
And a few years of keto before that. So he's way ahead. But, you know, and I've essentially healed everything I've wanted to heal. I'm purely just trying to build, and this is pure out of vanity, basically at this point, just to see what I can do now. Cause, you know, take it to the limit, and I like to eat. And so fasting, I've done a few fasts. I've done a week of OMADs. I've done a number of 24-hour fasts. I did a 50-hour fast when I had salmonella. And, you know, and another thing too that's special about me is I have migraines to worry about. And so my brain is a little more extra and requires a little extra support. So instead of doing just an egg white, I will be doing entire eggs, because I think my brain will need that fat for it, and the salt and all that stuff. So mine is going to be a little bit different. I am probably going to have a little bit more fat than Tom, maybe on average, but it might add up when the numbers are really crunched together. But yeah, so I do have, and the thing about migraines and stuff is that it also comes with low blood pressure, according to Angela Staton. And so technically migraineurs, without checking my blood pressure, I could fall into trouble if I tried to do like an extended fast past 3 days or so. I'm not quite sure if that would actually happen. So for me, this might actually overall be a safer way to get the results that I want. And this might be a safer way for people that might be dealing with other similar conditions that struggle with fasting, just because of different support that their brain might need specifically, or other parts of their body. So that's a big interest to me, is if I can get these results and keep my migraines down, not have to worry about blood pressure and other things like that.
That'd be wonderful. So sorry I missed it, but how many meals are you planning to eat the whole day, in one day?
Yeah, so I mean, they're not necessarily meals. Technically, I think as far as meals, I'm still doing 2 meals, but I'm trying to do a couple of snacks of like 3 ounces of some kind of protein. So 3 eggs in the morning, raw, just because they're easy to choke down and stuff like that. And then a meal when I take lunch from work. And then after that, maybe some more eggs, maybe some turkey meatballs, something like that. And then another meal. And then hopefully I get to where I do in some more meatballs or maybe more eggs, something like that. I am still going to be keeping in cheese for the moment. Cheese is staying for the moment. Seasonings are staying. And maybe the occasional Zevia, sparkling water, things like that. So gonna try and stay not absolutely ultra mega perfect carnivore, but we'll see if what happens. You know, I figure it's kind of like a rocket that's shooting off, and then it you know, as it gains atmosphere, it, you know, ejects those parts. Yeah. And so if I'm, and another thing I'd really like to do is be able to do this. So I just made some carnivore ice cream for the holidays and stuff like that. So I've got like 2.5 gallons of ice cream that I've made in my freezer. Yeah.
Wow.
What's your address?
Don't leave the door unlocked.
and I just made a bacon maple ice cream. So there you go. That's really nice. Good. Yeah.
Wow.
So one thing I think would be super cool would be for a tagline be like, you know, I lost body fat while eating ice cream. I feel like that would be like the ultimate, right? So we'll see. But I will say with increasing the protein, because like me and Tom had talked about, I'm up to 3 meals a day, more or less at the moment. And my energy is already better. My sleep is better. I feel stronger. I do feel like I'm not crashing as much before. You know, I would just wait till I was like really, really hungry. And that anxiety, you know, I was getting anxiety from like, oh, it hasn't been 16 hours or it hasn't been 18 hours yet. You know, it's like, I've been up since 7, it's 10, I'm hungry, but last night I ate at 9. And so I have to wait till 1 or something, whatever the hell it is. And I like with this where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily have to eat right away. You know, I might, do some stuff on the computer, get some work done. But if I eat at 9:30, if I eat at 10, I'm not stressed about it, and that is something I like. I feel is takes away some mental strain, which I feel like is always a plus.
Definitely.
Are you worried about eating just before you go to bed?
No, I've done that and I've expected it. I think I had a too big of a meal a couple nights ago, and it did give me a bit of like stomach upset and heartburn, but I think that was just what I ate. No, when we started this, so my theory is that my trouble sleeping was due to me eating too close to bedtime. But now since starting to do that, it doesn't seem to really be a factor. If I have something with too many spices in it, yeah, I'll get some stomach. And a good thing, we're not talking about a big meal, right? So before bed tonight, I've already talked about in this, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry now. And I just ate like 2 hours ago, I think. And I'm probably going to have a couple of burger patties, which will probably be 3 to 6 ounces before going to bed, like a half hour before bed, if I'm going to be honest,
That's what we're here for. Be honest.
And I should sleep fine just because it's burger patties with salt.
I'm still trying to work out exactly how many meals I'm going to eat. I mean, I think I was talking about this before you guys joined, but so I'm usually need, somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 calories a day. So yeah, obviously it's gonna fluctuate a bit. A light day for me is like 3,500 calories out. So I don't know. And, I'm experimenting with portion size, like 6 ounces of ground turkey, 1 strip loin, some egg whites and cottage cheese. I eat cottage cheese and stuff like that. So I'm working out. I'm experimenting with it now. And, at the end of the day, it is what it is, whatever meets the hunger. And I've noticed too, if you're eating I'm not going to try and eat right before I go to bed. I'm going to try and eat a little ways, an hour or 2 hours before I go to bed or whatever. I'm going to try and eat small meals that doesn't seem to be a problem. So like if I eat an hour or 2 before I go to sleep, I don't notice any problem with that. So of course that could depend on what you eat, I suppose. So, but I'm guessing somewhere 6, 7 times a day, maybe something like that, 8 times, who knows? Because I'm, during the week, I'm not home much typically. So I need to take everything with me, or I need to plan ahead. And that's why we're recording everything, not because we plan on restricting anything, but like meal prep's like a big deal for me, because especially on the weekends, I'll be cooking a lot of stuff, get it ready, and trying to maybe cook one more time in the middle of the week or something like that, as opposed to having to cook every day, because I just don't really have time, So it's like I said, it's an experiment. We're trying to work out as many kinks as we can here in December, and then, start it in earnest on January 1st. So.
And for how long? I know I came.
6 months.
Wow.
We're going to set it for 6 months and then go from there. We're not really sure how long you should do an experiment like this. So we're just like 6 months sounds good, but there's not really a great reason for it being 6 months other than it sounded like it was long enough to to get it going and see what happens, you know.
That's exciting though. Yeah. Totally different than we are all used to and what we listen to and we're taught. So that's
I was kind of wondering, you know, how it would be trying to explain to people like what we're doing and why it's different from what most people are talking about right now. Certainly, like you said, people do this all the time. It's no secret. It's just not real popular in social media right now, if that makes sense, right? Because I mean, I talk to bodybuilders at the gym all the time, and they're like, oh yeah, I get 2 cups of rice and 3 cups of vegetables and 1 cup of blah blah blah, you know, and they're eating several times a day and they're starving, you know, to get ready for the stage, you know. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting ready for the stage. I want to do this every day. I want to find the, you know, the best sort of rhythm, the best sort of technique for every day. And I have, there's no other way to say it. It seems like I run into people all the time that are keto or carnivore or low carb that are under eating all the time. And I ask people, I said, well, do you have any idea how much energy you're using throughout the day? I mean, as crude as the calorie is and as overgeneralized as the caloric unit is, do you have any idea what your consumption is like? And they don't have any idea. And then they started out, I don't know if we already talked about this when you were here, but people tend to start out real high fat, and then fat's very satisfying, and they just keep going with that. And they're like, well, this is, you know, I get headaches or my hair's falling out or, you know, whatever it is. And it's like, well, you know, change it up, man. Try more protein or, you know, whatever. It's, you know, and a lot of that comes from, if you think you got to eat 1 meal a day or even 2 meals a day and you're just cramming it in, that's not easy to digest for a lot of people. And I wonder, you know, are you chewing your food enough? Or, you know, that was one of the things where I was like, I started opening up to the ground meats a little more, because obviously we're people who have to eat a lot. It's easier to get the nutrition out of the ground meat. You know, you have to worry less about chewing and stuff. And I tend to be always in a hurry. So I'm like, yeah, I probably don't chew my meat enough sometimes. So I thought, what a great experiment. No feeding window, no fasting, no counting calories or macros. We're tracking them just to see what they are and to learn from that in the end, but we're not limiting or even trying to hit. Well, I mean, I might be trying to get more protein in to build more muscle or something like that, but I'm not even sure what that ratio would look like. It's hard to say, because I noticed, like, when I started incorporating the ground meat and the egg whites, you know, just drinking egg whites, it seemed like some of that protein was converting into energy more efficiently than it was when I was eating steak. So like, if I ate 2 big steaks and went to the gym, I would get the freaking meat sweats like clockwork, right? It was obvious. There's no missing it. And
felt like a menopausal woman, Tom.
That's right. So, but when you're sipping on the, you know, egg whites and stuff like that and eating the ground meats, it's like you don't notice it. And I've looked at like how much fat I've had, and I'm like, yeah, that's not enough energy, right? And then of course, how much of that are we just going to be able to tap into excess body fat that we wanted to get rid of anyways? So it seems to me that pulling the protein lever works really well for me. I know it's not for everybody, but you got to go with what works for you anyways, right?
Yeah, and when your metabolism goes up, you might even need more. So
yeah,
ideally,
I'm hoping I'll need more energy, and I'll need more amino acids to build bigger muscles. That's what it's all about. So
yeah, and you know, I think a lot of people in the community are kind of protein phobic still. You know, people talk about gluconeogenesis and stuff like that. You're going to spike your blood sugar, which I know we kind of already touched on. I don't think we're going to be testing, you know, I'll probably be testing my morning at least once a week or so. And then maybe in the middle of the week, I don't know if I'll be testing before going to bed. Again, we'll make tweaks as it moves forward and things like that. But, you know, John Anderson's approach is all about getting in with feeling of your body, you know, He actually doesn't track anything at all. He just eats and works out and eats, basically. And so we're just tracking, like I said, to just so we have something to display, and so that, oh, hey, that's interesting, that's interesting. And so instead of waiting for numbers to tell us that, hey, we might be, something might be wrong here, we're going to listen to our bodies. If I'm not hungry, I'm probably not going to eat. Like, I mean, truly not hungry, and I'm kind of giving myself this cue that if I start to think about food, I should probably go eat.
Yeah.
Like if it enters my head, because I notice that when I'm satiated, I'm not thinking about food, like literally have no thoughts about it at all. And I'm sure we all are used to that feeling. And so tuning into that, to me, is a big important part to it. And then obviously if sleep goes awry or energy starts to dip, then like, hey, might need more fat because I'm getting energy crashes, so we're going to certainly count on our bodies to give us those signs to let us know, hey, maybe we need to adjust something here. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, Cherish just shared this just in our last meeting about her sleep was doing much better now that she's feasting sort of like you guys. So it's actually improved. So
what sort of change did you make, Cherish?
So I started, I stopped all fasting December 1st. It's kind of like what Justin was saying. I was going to do an intermittent fast and feasting based upon body cues. But then I just said, hell with it. I'm just gonna feast, and I'm gonna prime through the entire month because of various issues and things that my body was having to endure this month. I'm like, I can't fast at all. The timing's not right, so I might as well feast. And all of a sudden, I started sleeping 2-3 hours more a night solid, whereas before my body would wake up every night around 2:30 to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom, go back to bed, no problem. Every night. Could not figure out why this was. Didn't matter how much magnesium I took. Didn't matter if I, changed up my sleep pattern. But once I started really nourishing my body, all of a sudden, I'm able to sleep longer. All the way through to right before my alarm clock goes off. So I made that connection and that observation in our last meeting, like Adek said, where I was like, well, aha. I guess I've been under eating for many, 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 many years. And so now that I'm not, my body's like, okay, you can rest now. And so my hypothesis for my own little self-experiment is that when January comes and I start to do some OMADs and some ADFs, which are my favorites, that
Tell everybody
I'll still
what that
be
is.
Sure. OMAD is one meal a day, and ADF is alternate day fasting. So every a deck 32 to 36 hours usually for ADF, right?
Skip
So,
a day.
Yeah, basically skipping a whole day. So my thought process is that because of all this nourishment that I'm getting, my body's going to get that signal like food is coming. It's okay. I can still rest. I don't need to worry about getting up. I don't need to go eat smaller meals. So I'm super stoked to see what happens in January, but I'm just going to enjoy the rest of December feasting. Tonight, I kind of decided that I'm keeping Gary through butter, cheese, through the holidays. And then not New Year's Eve, but through Christmas. And then the last 2 weeks of December, I think I'm going to ditch the cheese and just see what happens. I kind of had this idea like priming with cheese and then priming with just meat, and if the body would react differently. So doing my little own experiment.
Yeah, it's the way you find out, is doing the experiment for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when it comes to eating, like, I eat every kind of animal. So, as it's available. So I love eating oysters and clams and mussels and stuff like that, but they're not super available, not super easy to get, not super affordable. But I do eat them, and shrimp and whatever. Sometimes I eat I've got a friend that fishes, so I could eat 10 pounds of bluefin tuna in a day if I if I get the opportunity. So that was a
Wow.
question that came up where I was in another group the other day. It's like, well, do you just eat beef? And I was like, well, I mostly kind of eat beef, but I don't think there's any reason not to eat other things. I mean, I think, milk in general is obesogenic, but then when milk is turned into other things, or we're talking about a little bit of cream or, and then cheese is so complicated because so much happens to both the proteins and the sugars in the milk when and I look at cheese as more like a seasoning and less like a food, right? It's not an entire food group for me.
It's garnish.
It's garnish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to sit down and eat a pound of cheddar. So
I will try.
I think Coach Raymond has done that.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah,
He's a cheese addict.
What's
yeah.
that? Is that like an English cheddar or something? He's always macking on. He's like, see me eating that kind of white cheddar. He's like, yeah, I can't stop eating it. So, but I'll put some goat cheese on my steak once in a while, And so, anyways, yeah, I don't know. That's the other thing. The other concept is, for some people, when they need a true elimination diet, just eating beef or just eating steak and salt and water or whatever, it's probably not a bad way to go. But I don't know. It seems to like some people want to do that forever, and I'm like, why would you?
Have the occasional pangolin and a penguin.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Eat some lamb chops or something. Some
Kangaroo.
Yeah,
some kangaroo.
Yeah.
I've had that when I was 6. That was the last time I ate kangaroo.
Never had kangaroo. My dog has had kangaroo, but I have not.
I hounded Joe to go to the store and get some kangaroo. I couldn't believe they had it at the grocery store. I hounded him and hounded him. And he finally, okay. It's like, it's not that good. So he went and he got it. He's like, yeah, it was dry. It was tough.
It wasn't tough,
It was
but
lean.
it's very lean. It's too lean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very lean.
So whatever.
Yeah, it's not for me. And it's very gamey as well. It's a very
would you
gamey
call
meat.
that appropriate for the lion diet? So would that be a ruminant? Oh, no, it doesn't have all
They
stomachs.
do hop. I mean, they hop.
Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think kangaroos are ruminant.
No, they don't have the stomach.
It was actually very interesting listening to Cherish talk about how she's feasting. I've gone the other way where I'm eating 2 meals, and I've found my sleep has really improved a lot. So I typically don't eat after 2 o'clock. So my feeding window is 8 o'clock till about 2 o'clock, and then I go to work. So yeah, and for me it's been really good.
Wow.
But I will try the feasting, the smaller meals. I'll see what happens.
Yeah, one of the things I realized I really didn't like was eating a big meal. Like even carnivore, where you don't really get that, what we call in the United States, that Thanksgiving Day stuffing.
The itis.
The itis. Yeah, you don't. I mean, I'm like, I got to eat it now because this has got to last me how many hours, I really enjoy the smaller meal and the lack of, pressure in the stomach or whatever it is. It's just like, eat a small meal, like 6 ounces of ground turkey, it's like you coast on that for a little while and it digests very well and there's no discomfort or whatever. If I have to cram in 2 or 3 ribeyes at one time, I'm not going to make it.
You'll make it to the bathroom, maybe. You'll make it.
Make it to the cabinet for some antacids, maybe.
Yeah. I was saying the other day at a meeting that I have a 1.5 ribeye threshold. And then if I go over that, my stomach's like, oh no, you cannot do that.
Yeah, we always talk about the fat threshold, but you're talking about the ribeye threshold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah,
Too much
I won't say how
butter and
much
that's
I
it.
yeah, I eat 4.5 pounds in one sitting. So having
Wow.
A lot of people
having
do.
several meals a day is for me would be, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
would
know
not.
plenty, lots of people could do that. I never could. I've tried, and I'm a big guy, but like even like Justin's like an average size guy, and like we used to live close to each other, so we'd hang out pretty frequently, and he could eat way more at one time than I could, and he's just kind of he
Yeah, it doesn't
literally
really
weighs like
matter.
he literally weighs like half of what I do.
Yeah.
He could put way more in one meal than I could. So
Yeah, I would empty Tom's fridge basically. Drink and food, just eat and eat and eat and eat. I think because like I grew up in like, you know, a not great home, and so I'd always go to friends' houses and just eat all their food because there wasn't like food at my house to eat. And so maybe I've just learned to scavenge.
You were feasting without even knowing it. You were
Right.
already a feaster at that moment, putting away.
Right. There you go. Except I would never gain weight. Like, you know, that'll be interesting to see if I can actually gain weight eating this way, because I have such a hard time putting on muscle or fat. Like I just, everything just, I seem to just go through me. But yeah, even when I was carb and all that stuff, I mean, I probably started to gain weight there towards the end a little bit, but I doubt I would have ever gotten like overweight. Maybe I would have if I really tried, but I just think I just have that body type.
Yep. So anybody else got anything planned for the new year? Any experiments, challenges?
No, actually, I'm just continuing on. Actually, I am doing actually the lion diet, and I might incorporate some egg yolks back in though. But I'm not really craving for them yet, so taking my time. Yeah. Gotcha. No experimenting. So
yeah. The only thing we're changing up is that we have to kind of back off the pork. We were told that, yeah, we got some blood work back. And when I say we, I'm talking about my significant other, my husband, was told that he had some inflammation and that maybe to back off the pork and try and find, which is really difficult in the Midwest, to find eggs that are not soy or corn fed chickens. I'm like right in the middle of corn central. Like that's all we grow out here. I don't know how I'm going to find non-soy, non-corn fed hens that lay eggs.
What
brown chickens.
What state are you in, if you don't mind?
Illinois.
Oh, okay. I'm right next to you, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah, I seem to be able to find them at like specialty stores. Sometimes there's a farmer's market and you can ask them. And or maybe duck eggs. They might feed ducks differently.
Yes, I asked her that, and it was you guys are familiar with Quality Carnivore, right? Austin.
Oh yeah,
Deli.
Austin. Yeah.
So that's who we
just today.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's who we consulted with, and she was trying to help us find a resource, and we just couldn't. So, but Justin, by all means, if you hear of anything that's in between the states where we're at, I'm up in the upper part of Illinois, let me know.
How much pork were you guys eating?
Well, my son eats bacon every day, but my husband and I, we don't really consume pork that much, but I do cook in a lot of bacon grease. Like that's my main staple as far as like preparing food.
And are you doing conventional bacon, like just from the store?
I get it from the butcher, and I get it from Butcher Box is where I usually get my bacon.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. And occasionally Applegate, because if we run out, because again, my kid, he, you know, he's a young dude. He's only 12, and that's the meat that he likes. And he's got, you know, ADHD. So the more meat I can shove in this kid, the better.
Right. Now, is there, sorry, I really kind of like digging into this now. But
Sure.
so was there a previous test of less inflammation? And then you guys started the carnivore and the pork, and then now inflammation's showing up? I'm just kind of curious if there's any kind of timeline.
So there was a test 9 months ago, and it wasn't a lot of increase, but just a little bit. And because he's diabetic, you know, you have to watch that. So, I mean, he's close to reversing his type 2 diabetes, but it's almost like because it didn't take him we've only been eating low carb to carnivore a year. So it didn't take him a year to get that way. So it's going to take a while, but yeah. So the recommendation was to kind of cut back on some of those things and help that inflammation calm down.
Interesting. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was, that's all right.
Isn't pork higher in omega-6, which can cause inflammation?
Yep. And that's the other thing that she pointed out was that the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio was off. Very good.
And it's the same with chicken as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, a ribeye only or like a beef only situation might be happening here in January. And then I'll be cooking in a lot of ghee.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know if I can I love bacon. I just had some tonight.
I'm having bacon right now.
But maybe you don't need to cook in so much. Just put like a little smear on there, just a tiny bit. But then again, I mean, if you're cooking with you know, if you're cooking a ribeye, there's enough fat on that ribeye that you don't need. If the pan's hot enough or your barbecue's hot enough, you don't need to put anything there. You know. I don't. When it comes to ribeye, I use tallow. But when it comes to eggs and, you know, actually good old fashioned bacon, or like when I make my meatballs with pork panko, I'll cook those in bacon grease. So I'll just probably switch over to ghee or tallow to try something different and see if that helps. Yeah.
Or maybe even beef bacon. But put some butter on it.
Butter.
Yeah.
We try not to make Joe feel too self-conscious about his crazy accent, but I can't help
What
it.
accent? What are you talking about?
No accents here.
We're all the same.
None at all.
It's not his fault. He lives on the bottom of the planet.
I live in beautiful Sydney, Australia. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cold up here now.
Yeah, we're in summer. It's beautiful.
He was just complaining about how hot it was when cycling today.
Yeah, and it's not even really hot yet. So
he dodged a magpie and an inland taipan, and then a kangaroo tried to steal his bicycle.
And then I tried to catch the kangaroo so I could eat it.
Yeah, and of course there's the spiders and the snakes you need to avoid as well.
And he almost got run over by a slapper.
Now we're gonna get banned.
Yeah, 100%.
We spent like 45 minutes geeking out on poisonous snakes before we even started.
Oh, okay.
So.
Oh, geez.
And the deadliest snake, or the most venomous snake, was Australian.
Yeah,
of course.
He's very proud of that.
Yeah.
Mamba,
Let us forget it.
Bring me one. I need to add it to my collection.
Mamba, is it Mamba? I don't remember.
No, it's called that's South African. We've got the inland taipan.
Oh goodness.
Inland taipan. Sounds like a dish.
They're very low in
it'll make a dish of you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
They're very low in omega-6.
Well, I heard I was a snack.
Oh, really? Did you look it up, Tom?
Yeah, they mostly eat mice, and mice are very low in omega-6 as well. So
good diet.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
We couldn't find any nutritional facts on magpies though, for some reason.
So magpies are a black and white bird that during mating season, they'll attack you.
Mm.
Yeah, they're very aggressive. So,
Kind of like the panhandlers in San Francisco.
Oh dear.
So, anyways, anybody else have any parting shots they want to take?
No, I'm good. I'm just happy I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice to have you,
really
have you guys drop in. Nice surprise. Makes me want to strangle Raymond a little less.
For not showing
Especially-
up.
Yeah, for not showing up. He's like, here, I'll send 2 replacements for me.
Right? See how he is?
delegates.
He's probably sitting in his office chair, snacking on some cheese, laughing at us. Right?
Yeah, he's just giggling in his little corner.
He's probably saying, I'm not going on because he's going to ask me if I'm actually wearing pants or not.
Oh, should we ask that on Tuesday, Cherish?
Oh, you go first,
Okay.
and then I'll ask after you.
So, well, we want
When are
to
you
thank.
guys gonna come to one of our meetings? You guys should
I
come to one of
don't.
our
I don't know.
meetings.
Ray never invites. Well,
Oh. Well,
You
now
know,
you're
I have a continuous invite. I just never have the time. And me and Tom have been forever trying to come up with a meet calendar where it's like all the events, and we're just having a hard time technically putting it together. And yeah, the Bella's meetings, shout out to Bella, steak and butter gal. Yeah, her meetings, they're at odd times, kind of. Well, I just haven't memorized it. And so I just completely forget about it. So much social media. Me and Tom talk about this all the time that
yeah.
Joe or M or someone will send us a message or something. We're like, crap, on what was that? In Instagram? Was that Facebook? Was it Telegram? Yeah.
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 Jason.
What's going on?
Yeah, there is actually, because it is still a small world, but there is so much to catch up on and to chase after if you really want to watch everything. Yeah.
I would have to come up with a fake ID if I were to appear on certain platforms because I am persona non grata on a certain website. So,
Oh dear.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that off air.
Yeah.
So
It's because Tom wasn't wearing pants.
Oh.
that's the cover story.
Mm.
So, anyways, well, I'm just gonna cut this one off. I thank you, ladies, for showing up. A nice surprise. Thanks, Joe, for sticking around, grinding it out with us. And after you just got home from a long ride, and we hope people leave us your comments. Let us know what you think about the experiment. Maybe you want to join in with us. And it always helps if you send links to the videos on to other people who might enjoy them. That's the best way to grow the channel. Stay subscribed, send those links out, leave us your comments. We try and get to everybody who leaves us a comment. So
smash an egg on that like button.
So everybody out there, eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't fall down the carb hole.
carb hole.
Yay.